How many assassination attempts do we actually know about? How many have the government told us about? Well, we just found out about 2 new assassination attempts against President Trump. But don't worry, they swooped in. They were allowed to stop these assassins who were trying to kill President Trump.
Wait, who is they? The FBI that's prosecuting him? Right now?
Well, who knows exactly? I mean, who is they for what part of the question?
Who is they who swept in and stopped it?
Well, the Capitol Police seem to have stopped it this time.
Okay.
So the Capitol Police, at least in part, because Trump was there at the Capitol when Jimmy Carter was laying in state and during the funeral. So there's a huge, the argument could be said, well, maybe they're going after every president that was sitting there at the time to make a show of it. No, it seems like, according to these threats, they were going after President Trump, President-elect Trump, while he was at Jimmy Carter's funeral. Beforehand, afterhand, it's not very clear, but listen to the police on these 2 new attempts at his life.
The biggest threat, I think, for all of us remains the lone actor. Just in the past week, while President Carter was lying in state, we had 2 lone actors show up at the Capitol. One trying to bring in knives and a machete, another one who was trying to, what I believe, to disrupt the proceedings by setting their car on fire down in the Peace Circle area. U.S. Capitol Police were able to interdict these folks before they had a chance to do any harm. But that threat of the lone actor remains the biggest justification for us being on at this heightened state of alert throughout the next week.
So how many are they telling us about? And where is the mainstream media covering these stories? So how many other attempts right now has the FBI rounded up? How many individuals?
The media is bored of this.
The media doesn't care at all, of course, about these assassination attempts. And of course, when they do present it, then liberals love to downplay it and say that this is not a big deal. Just assassination attempts to get against a person who just won an overwhelming majority in an election. Just downplay it. Just downvote it. Who cares? Really? Okay. I mean, literally within a hair's breadth, an inch, President Trump's head would have been shot off in Butler, Pennsylvania. So this is no big deal to you? I mean, if this happened to President Obama or any other liberal president-elect, there would be it'd be wall-to-wall coverage all over MSNBC and the legacy media. Here's the front page of the Washington Post today as these new credible threats have emerged against President Trump's life. Nothing. Zero on this. And of course, but they are happy to cover, look on the right-hand side of your screen, they're happy to cover, we should be very worried about the decline of DEI. That's what the liberal media is really worried about. I
always set my worries by what they tell me to worry about. I do. I just want to know. And I think about, our checkbook or our insurance or our taxes. No. What does the Washington Post tell me to worry about? And then I'll proceed worrying about that.
I mean, I would love to know how many more, but we'll hear multiple credible reports from different sources that there have been other arrests against President Trump's life. Why don't we hear about these? So why is the mainstream media hiding this from us? Why is Christopher Wray resigning? So yeah, there's not going to hear much on that front. But Jake Sullivan, the NSA, Jake Sullivan yesterday told reporters yesterday that this was his last press conference and that today was his last day on the job, unless a big event compels him to come back. Watch.
I just will say one last word, which is I hope this is my last time at this podium, at least for a little while. I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, the only thing that would bring me back is an unexpected event in the next few days, which, as you all know, is totally possible given everything you've seen over the course of the past years. Okay. But if it is, in fact, my last time before you, I just want to say thank you for what you guys do every day. Thank you for putting up with me.
Yeah, odd official in our chat says, was that code? Yeah.
Right.
That's totally possible. A major event could come at any moment now against who knows what in Washington, D.C. or otherwise, in which case, for our national security, I would need to be back here, right here to talk to you again. But I hope this is my last press conference. Fingers crossed.
Well, I would like to see him at a microphone again, sure, testifying about his role in Russiagate. Sure.
Yeah.
But not in a leadership position. I would like to see him around the other side of the table being asked hard questions.
Or, genocide in other spots of the world. Again, so multiple credible threats, and the Capitol Police on high alert right now for threats against President Trump's life. Roger Stone, of course, on our show a few weeks ago warned about this, that they are going to continue to try to go after him. And a former CIA agent, Michael Scheuer, on our show said that they would likely stop now with gun attacks against President Trump, that it would likely come in the face of like car bombs or other use of like vehicles. So, yeah, that's great. We have that.
Something Ivanka Trump said in a podcast just this week was that it's one of the loneliest positions, being the president of the United States. And she knows it already is for her father, because not just of the media slander that he experiences, but just because he trusts so few people. And you have to see how this will only escalate in the wake of all of these assassination attempts. And that she says, she doesn't want to get back in politics, probably because the media was terrible to her, but also because he needs a daughter, just family members, and you can see how that resonates now.
Yeah. Man with a brain in our chat says, I'm glad they're on high alert. Less chance anything getting by. I hope so.
Can we collectively knock on wood?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that there's no threats.
Clayton doesn't like me to knock on the desk, but
no, please do. But we do know that that's it.
Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry, but what was the threat level in Pennsylvania? Was that like low alert?
So well, that's the thing.
I want to gauge what high alert is for them.
Mm-hmm.
So we had multiple threat alerts, right? So they knew that there was multiple, and the FBI had this individual on their radar, right? We knew about this. And of course, then they had the sort of DEI fake Secret Service agents in Butler, Pennsylvania. So like, are we concerned at all about the people that are surrounding President Trump right now, President-elect Trump? I am. Like, what's the security look like around him as we head into Washington, D.C.? And now the lifting of these drone restrictions yesterday, which we showed you here on the show, the lifting of these, now it's on you to like not fly your drones in restricted airspace. So,
does that include over the inauguration?
Exactly. So what sort of restrictions will be put in place aerospace wise? We'll have to watch and see. Meanwhile, the Pentagon says they're planning to undermine Trump. Advisors who worked in the Pentagon. We now have confirmation that the deep state, including members of the woke military industrial complex, are working overtime to undermine President-elect Trump on day one, just like the last time he was in Washington, D.C., and they tried to drain the swamp back in 2016, with the military-industrial complex and the deep state that worked overtime to undermine President Trump. A top Pentagon advisor just revealed on hidden camera with a James O'Keefe media reporter, an undercover reporter, their plans to, quote, do what they can to protect people from Trump. Watch this unbelievable undercover camera.
And I work at this top consulting firm, and my client is the Pentagon. So I'm embedded in the Pentagon. I work in the Joint Staff, which is the top military command. When she lost, I went into the intelligence community and I became an FBI special agent. So I became a spy hunter. So I was a counterintelligence agent, special agent at the FBI.
What's your overall assessment of Trump?
He's a sociopathic narcissist who is only interested in advancing his name, his wealth, and his fame.
Is there anything you can do to protect American people from the stuff that he might try to do?
I'm in conversation with a couple of retired generals to try to explore what we can do.
Who were the retired generals that you were going to talk to?
They're 1, 2, or 3 star generals and admirals. You probably know maybe 4 stars. So I also have a big day tomorrow, probably the biggest day of all. So we have this huge meeting with military leaders in a very secure room called the Tank.
Ooh.
So we have a tank meeting with all of the top leaders in the United States military tomorrow on my topic that I prepared.
Oh, okay.
I just want to say this. I read Edward Snowden's book. Everyone in Washington is the client of the Pentagon, or everyone who works there, their client is the Pentagon. Right. So that's not all that impressive, but okay.
So he's got a big meeting on AI tomorrow at the Pentagon, and he's here having drinks. Former special agent of the FBI, former assistant to Hillary Clinton, senior advisor at the Pentagon, just talking about how to protect the United States from Trump with these 3 and 4-star generals and how this is all going to play out? Okay. You guys feel safer that this guy is at the helm?
Well, no, because I assume that that guy's a dime a dozen in Washington, thinking he's going to thwart the Trump administration.
Well, I mean, look, it worked last time. So again, it worked in 2016.
Yes.
They absolutely undermined President Trump. You saw traitorous Mark Milley. Basically, we know will he be court-martialed as a result of not following orders? So again,
we know that the FBI asked social media to censor any pro-Trump information in order to get Joe Biden elected while Trump was in office. So yeah, it's not hard to believe. It's not that I don't believe him. It's that I think that there's a lot of weasels like him. And yeah, sure. But sure. How much power will they have this time around now that we know about it?
Well, I don't know. It's a massive bureaucracy, right? I mean, they have $1 trillion a year budget. So anyway, this guy, by the way, Jamie Menina, was busted by Predator DC coming to have sex with an underage girl in November of 2021. It's the same guy. He may have been an active FBI agent at the time. It's unclear exactly on the timeline. He may have just left the Bureau. It's not clear. Or like a few months before this encounter, but he was still, in fact, an advisor to the Pentagon, like he is currently. And here he was busted on camera going to have sex with an underage girl. What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't think
allegedly.
you need to explain that.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That's the word.
I thought you were going to go into detail, and
Starts
I was going to ask you not to.
A-hole. Watch. Why was this guy still allowed to be working at the Pentagon? According to James O'Keefe, he's now been fired by the Pentagon and his role there. So he is out. But again, the deep state working actively, of course, to undermine President Trump and President-elect Trump. We knew this was the case. Now we have more evidence of it, on-camera admission that that's the case.
Oh, maybe thought he was working for the Pentagon.
That's a good one.
Yeah. How many other Pentagons, or how many other pedophiles work there? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Pentagon.
Well, did President Trump just pull off a ceasefire in Gaza? That's what's being reported, because Israel and Hamas have agreed in principle to terms of a ceasefire, and there is rejoicing in both Tel Aviv and Gaza. The deal will have both sides exchange prisoners, although Fox News calls Palestinian prisoners terrorists and Israeli prisoners, even though we know that a lot of those people that Israel has in captivity and has had since long before October 7th are women and children and journalists. This document is from Palestinian authorities. They say that Israel has imprisoned approximately 9,000 people just since October 7th alone. Before that, we know they already had thousands, many of them women, children, and journalists. So Hamas still has fewer than 300 Israelis, or around that number. We're still unclear, to exchange. So even if it's a person-to-person, one-for-one exchange, we have to assume that many Palestinians will remain in custody in Israeli prisons. And they never changed the law. They did not prosecute, so it is still legal for them to sexually assault their prisoners. And it is still sort of kosher. I don't know if that's the wrong word. It is still allowed to be done. Okay, but every single one of those prisoners are worth the same exact life for life, right? No matter where they're from, no matter whether they're Palestinian or Israeli, we should want all of them to be returned safely to their homes and not punished for the actions of their government. I think we can all collectively agree on that, right? On this show, we care about them equally. Fox News, though, was very concerned today. Why would Palestinians be celebrating the ceasefire? Harris Faulkner on Fox News was asking her guest, why are these people celebrating in Gaza? While she was showing footage of this, could it be because they want to stop being bombed? Is that one reason? Maybe if she lived in a place where civilian shelters and hospitals were bombed out, she would be happy that that stopped. Is that confusing to you, Clayton, that you want to not live where bombs drop? Is that a hard one?
Looking at this B-roll. Yeah. Looking at this B-roll, I mean, I don't see what the problem is. This looks totally normal to me, right? Like this is.
Yeah.
I would love to have my kids play outside here.
She's wondering why they're celebrating that this would stop. She thinks they should want this to keep happening. I'm just so confused that I almost threw something at the television. Okay, but then let's go to why this happened. What's the deal? Now, the deal seems to be that Israel will remove their presence from Gaza, even though they've said all along they will not do that no matter what. But under this deal, it seems like they will. Let's put a pin in that because we don't know if they will or not. But let's ask ourselves this question. Joe Biden is still the president. Did the Biden administration do this? Well, the terms of the deal that were agreed upon are the exact same deal that the Biden administration offered Israel and Hamas 8 months ago. So why did they agree to it now? Why did we have to have these last 8 months of death? President Biden is victory lapping with this statement. I want to encourage you to go to X and find it for yourself because the comments are gold, reminding him that, no, sir, you didn't really do this. You allowed it to keep going. Glenn Greenwald puts it this way, that this newspaper asks the question and answers it with their own photo. Why did it happen now? This guy. That's what we're pretty much agreeing to, that it's the incoming Trump administration. If you'd like to make an argument against it, I'm all ears. But it would seem that this is the case. Number one, last week he posted a video calling Netanyahu a deep, dark son of a bee who led the U.S. into multiple follies in the Middle East and now wants America to fight a war with Iran on Israel's behalf. That shows us what Trump thinks of the Israeli government and his tolerance for following them into endless wars, which he has spoken out about for decades against war. Netanyahu knew that Biden and Blinken weren't going to stop him from doing Jack S, and you know it. But Trump, even the very pro-Zionist Free Press, admits it was Trump. Here is their post today. What changed? Although the White House deserves credit for persevering in the hostage release talks, the deal probably owes much to the soon incoming threats to visit all hell on Hamas and his ability to press Netanyahu. President Biden can say, don't stop. And everyone in the Middle East did anyway, because they know that Biden is spineless and has no intention of pushing for peace if it means pushing Israel for anything. But not so with Donald Trump, the Free Press says. One meeting with this Special East envoy and Bibi decided to accept the conditions. But here is where we're still concerned. Still, if and when the ceasefire breaks down, the Israeli government is counting on the Trump administration's unbridled support in completing the destruction of Hamas. Hamas is banking on international action to prevent the war from reigniting it. The most of the world will applaud. So even CBS News points out that it will be up to the Trump administration to implement this ceasefire deal. Keep Israel out of there. Keep Hamas from waging more terrorist attacks anywhere. Can they do it? Even CBS says privately U.S. officials acknowledge this plan for governance is aspirational, they say, meaning nobody could uphold their end of the bargain. And Israel, in fact, is not reportedly upholding their end of the bargain in Lebanon. There is a ceasefire deal there. They are still bombing. They are still pursuing there. And the U.S. has guaranteed the ceasefire in Lebanon, but not done anything about it. So Israel knows the U.S. doesn't mean it. They don't have to uphold it, so they just willy-nilly freely go back into their attacks. Will they do the same if the military is run by a President Trump? This is I don't have an answer for that. This is the question we need to continue to keep our eyes open for. I think we should approach this peace deal with extreme caution, because will Netanyahu now bow this easily to Trump if he really is this deep, dark son of a bee? Because that feels very dangerous. We all should feel the danger of this, especially if he now has to face his own people and the consequences. They don't like him. And then I think we can sort of extrapolate to what this means for the war in Russia. Netanyahu is arguably much tougher than Zelensky, wouldn't you say?
Yes, but it really comes down to Putin. I mean, I think if you're saying what does this mean for Ukraine, we've seen over the past 48 hours, President Putin saying that he's ready to meet with Trump. Trump saying he hates that he has to wait until he's president. So will we have an agreement on Ukraine almost immediately as well? It seems that according to sources, I think Colonel McGregor has said that there's already a peace agreement been drafted and ready to go.
Has been since 2022.
But that Trump's team would be able to work on this with Putin almost immediately.
But I'm comparing warmonger to warmonger is what I'm asking you to do as an exercise in fun. Because Netanyahu and Zelensky, right? Zelensky is Weasley. Netanyahu is a lot more dangerous. And so do you think if Netanyahu couldn't keep the war he wanted, Zelensky has any prayer?
Oh, no.
That's what I'm asking you to do.
I see what you're saying. And Trump, Trump was just asked like last week or a week and a half ago, do you trust Netanyahu? And Trump just looked right in the camera and said, I don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
So go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say, and also Israel has a more effective army than Ukraine would ever have, so they are actually a threat. So
good point.
Well, fully funded and supported by us, by the United States. Israel wouldn't have an army if it wasn't for the United States. Israel has a massive budget surplus, and I always bring this up, and they have their own space program. We fully send them billions of dollars. We just cut them another $8 billion check.
Yes.
So they are fully funded by us, and I think that may be part of the threat from Trump.
And we've allowed Israel to have their own nuclear program, whereas we took the candy away from Ukraine. We took all the nukes out of their country in exchange for a peace deal. So,
and we keep giving money to the army that attacked us when the USS Liberty. So,
right. It's like Philip points. That's like Stockholm syndrome. It's like, okay, wait a minute. You killed American soldiers. You killed Americans and tried to blame it on Egypt. Here's some more money. Can we give you more money? Americans should be outraged about this, but of course, no one covers it. No one talks about it.
Well, we do.
We do.
Okay, I'm going to let Glenn Greenwald have the last word on this about this idea of a ceasefire, if in fact that's what it is. He says, I don't care what you think of Trump. I don't care what Trump's motives are or what else he promised Israel, which I'm sure is non-trivial. Anyone who causes an end to Israel's civilian destruction in Gaza has done a good thing, and there's no denying his key role. So we will, in terms of the Broadway fans, we will hold space for that, but we have to watch because, one, there's still many more Palestinians who will not be freed, even if every Israeli is. So who will speak for them? I'm asking you. Who will speak for them? Who will speak for their rights to a fair trial, which they won't have? And who will make sure that Israel then does not continue to have a presence in these places, that they do not continue to move into the West Bank? Who will then make sure that we don't follow them into any other wars? It's a big job. This is not the end of anything at all. So we're going to hold on to that. Hold on to your butts, as I like to say.
We have to tell you about a huge scam right now that's happening across the United States, house stealing. The FBI says this is one of the largest and growing scams in the United States, where scammers access your home's equity. America is sitting on trillions of dollars in home equity right now. Many of you have a home that has a lot of equity in your home. Well, what if you went to bed and then you woke up and found the title to your home had been taken from you? This is happening all across the country. And the scariest part is you won't even find out about it until unpaid loan bills or foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox. But by then the damage has already been done and you're left with a legal or financial nightmare to deal with. Yes, people stealing the title of your home. And all they have to do, they have to get a simple notary and then submit that to the county. And that's how these scammers are doing it. And you won't even know about it. And that's where our friends at Home Title Lock comes in. Now, I am a customer of Home Title Lock. I think this is vital for every American. It's a small price to pay for you to get your home title protected by Home Title Lock. And the best part is you can get a 30-day free trial. Just right now, 30-day free trial. Well, they will actually scan to see if your title is safe and make sure that you have triple lock protection. And they will give you a complimentary title history of your home. All you have to do is go to hometitlelock.com/redacted. Click on the link in the description box. Again, this is hometitlelock.com, promo code redacted. You really want to protect yourself, and that's why we protect our home with Home Title Lock as well. All right, more news to get to here. Well, don't let any liberal tell you that it was climate change or high winds that led to the failure of California trying to stop these wildfires. We now have incontrovertible evidence and truth that the reason so many houses and buildings burned down is because of liberal government officials who failed the people of California. Plain and simple. But first, a quick update now. As thousands of Californians are under new evacuation orders this afternoon, the Palisades fire only 17% contained.
Right now, Los Angeles County is once again facing the most severe wind warning, raising the threat for new fires. Heavy winds could also spread to existing fires. The massive Palisades fire was only 17% contained overnight, and the death toll from this disaster is rising.
Now, so again, we now know unequivocally that a failure of government in California is to blame for the spread of these wildfires. Journalist Michael Schellenberger first reported this failure. Some great reporting yesterday on his website, Public, and failure to mobilize firefighters before LA fires began led to the catastrophe, says an LA firefighter whistleblower. Now, the LA Times is confirming Schellenberger's reporting that hundreds of fire trucks could have been mobilized, but instead never left the parking lot. LA fire officials could have put engines in the Palisades before the fire broke out. They didn't. I love that a massive news organization, by the way, like the LA Times, was second on a story broken and reported by an independent journalist. Just goes to show you the sign of the times. If you needed any more proof that legacy media is dead, look no further. So here are the LA fire trucks were caught on camera sitting in a parking lot. Hundreds of them.
Is that the fire behind that? That's not the sun.
No,
that's actually
you see the smoke and they're just there behind a fence. These needed some repairs, some minor. Look at all the smoke, and they're just sitting there.
You can't send them out if they need a smog check, Clayton.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if there's something wrong with its alternator, because you can't send them out.
They could emit something bad into the environment.
Right. Nothing like the PVC pipes that have burnt and melted and added all this carcinogens to the atmosphere. But yeah, we have to worry about these trucks, right? So now we know that California didn't receive any response also from first responders for 45 minutes after the fires broke out. It's told to stand down. Nothing. Don't respond. Nada. Rich McHugh did some amazing reporting on this at News Nation and confirmed this. Listen.
They claim they didn't see any response until 45 minutes after they called 911.
It's hard to believe, Elizabeth, but I wouldn't have believed it either until I saw the video. Michael Valentine, he's a former U.S. attorney for 8 years under Kamala Harris. He and his wife, they live at the top of Pacific Palisades, right next to this ridge line where the fire broke out. He says his wife called at 10:29 a.m. Tuesday morning. That's when they first saw it, and they didn't see anybody come for at least about a half an hour, 45 minutes before they dropped some water. He documented it all on video, giving News Nation an exclusive look of where it started and how quickly it grew. By 10:50, the plume had spread considerably, twice as large. 8 minutes later, the size of the fire seems to have doubled yet again. Still nobody fighting the fire. At 11:13 a.m., nearly 45 minutes after Michael's wife called in the fire, you see a chopper come through. At 11:23, a helicopter comes in, begins to dump water on it. But at this point, the fire is massive and moving quickly down this ridgeline.
Jeez, can you imagine watching that come towards your house like that?
No, that's incredibly anxietizing.
It's like lay this whole scenario over the top of Lahaina. It's like the exact same thing. Like they have all these excuses. Oh, there's no water. The firefighters couldn't do their job. Like, what is this?
Power companies, officials that didn't respond, an emergency services setup that failed, right? So they couldn't get information to individuals. But look, don't worry about it, because Gavin Newsom is just not worried about pointing the blame. Like, he doesn't want to point the finger at anyone. He just wants to move forward. Listen.
No, it may be the absolute explanation, but there's so much mistrust and finger pointing. Let's just get the facts and let's get them out quickly. Let's stop the finger pointing. Let's just assess the truth. I'm not interested in who's to blame. I want to know what happened.
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay, I'm really concerned. How do you get the facts without asking the questions? The questions are finger pointing?
Yeah.
He wants the facts, but he doesn't want anybody asking them.
Who makes a statement like that is not guilty of something? Those are the people that don't want any investigation into what's going on, you know?
Yeah. Have you seen Michael Rappaport on Instagram today? He went crazy on Gavin Newsom. Gavin with the good hair. He's like, you're done. No more mistakes, Gavin with the good hair. You're done. You don't get to make more mistakes when people die, when people's entire livelihood.
Oh, he cares about California. He doesn't care about the genocide in Gaza, by the way. He's totally fine with that.
Michael Rappaport?
Yeah, he's totally fine on that side of it. He can pick his outrage, I guess.
Well, I can pick what's entertaining, what he says.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
So, again, Michael Schellenberger's reporting over the past 24 hours is pretty eye-opening because he's now saying that the money that was set aside for these fires and these disaster relief efforts and prevention of these fires was rerouted basically for DEI and climate programs inside of California. So the money that was meant for this was rerouted, a misappropriation of funds. And we also know, of course, that the reservoirs should have been filled. And they were supposed to have been. Why were they emptied in the days before the fires? Why, when they sent out these notices about fire, the incoming fire problems, did the mayor fly to Ghana? So they knew that this was coming. They had these alerts and awareness about it. So anyone who's sort of painting that this is it's just climate change, you're an idiot. Of course, Trump has been merciless right now against Gavin Newsom, calling him Gavin Newscum. And it's, I think even that title has been now trending all over social media. But don't worry, Gavin's heard it all before. And he's got some thick skin, he says. Watch.
I get it. They want to take us. I get it. I'm not naive. I get the California derangement syndrome. I've been living with that for years and years. New scum. The same 7th grade. I remember the guy on Baltimore Avenue that called me new scum. I was in 7th grade. I can handle that. We'll leave that aside. I understand what they're trying to do. I want to work with them. It's not about me. It's about people that we both represent. He represents and I represent. And I'm honored and proud to represent these folks. And I desperately plead with them. Come out here. Help us, and we will help you. You'll be elevated, Mr. President. At the end of the day, you'll be the one we all will go to and say, thank you. Thank you.
Can't wait to see that. He will say that.
Help me. Help me help you. Help me help you.
What I love is he's not even president.
Yeah.
You have a president who flew in and told you all how, hey, I know it's bad. The house is burned down. I got a grandson, he told a crowd of people. And held up airspace as a result of his of Air Force One flying in. So you have a president. He's not president until Monday.
Did he just steal derangement syndrome from Trump derangement syndrome? That's very unoriginal. I have to say, I'm speculating that he may be doing some drugs.
Have you seen all the videos where he's
speculation, folks? I'm allowed to say
back and forth. And now people have added like bongo drums to him, like down. I tweeted one. You guys want to check out my Twitter feed? But I was laughing. There's a lot of memes with him like looking like he's on drugs, back and forth.
Okay, but let's save this clip because if and when it does get solved, we'll ask him to say thank you to President Trump.
Okay, let's see what happens. Okay. California derangement syndrome.
All right. Well, is the U.S. government recognizing that there's toxins in our food because of the upcoming possible appointment of RFK Jr., who has been talking about this, and the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again? Well, the FDA, in advance of the second Trump administration, which I think many people voted for this to clean up fluoride in the water, clean up poisons in the food, all of that stuff. And so the FDA is like, hey, we just discovered that red number 3 has been associated with cancer in rats. So we're going to remove it from the food supply. We're not going to let it be put into any food or medicines any longer. That doesn't mean tomorrow you can still go out and eat red 40 right now if you are keen to do so. Red 3, I'm sorry. Red 3 is what they're saying has been known to cause cancer in rats, but they're saying it doesn't happen in humans, but we have to remove it anyway. But they have until 2027 to remove it from food. and 2028 to remove it from medicines. It's not allowed in makeups, and it's not allowed in topical medicines. So say a cream or something like that. But it has been for years still allowed in cookies and gum and sports drinks and candy. So I mentioned accidentally Red 40 because Red 40 has also been associated with cancer. They're not worried about that one right now. Red 40, you can still get. Red 3, you can still get. And also, yellow 5 and yellow 6 has been known to be a carcinogen. We're cool with that for now, I guess.
Maybe
I'm curious.
We're going to start with number 3.
Yeah,
all
let's
of these
just get rid
things
of
are
anything that's a color and a number. All of it. Like,
yeah, and it shouldn't be in your. We all know like cereal is one of the worst things, right, for your body, right? I think we all agree on that. I'm curious, like in the United States, we have all of these dyes that are still inside of American cereals. The red dye, up until now, the FDA is saying no on that one, but the yellow dye, which we'll talk about in a second, but a whole bunch of other dyes are still found, like in American cereals. Like if you're in Canada, if you happen to have any cereal on your shelf. I'd be curious, like post in the chat, let us know, like when you're in Canada or other areas, do you see those red dyes, yellow dyes, or anything like in your cereals?
Well, I mean, it's really a mixed bag because people say, oh, Europe doesn't allow it, but Europe does allow some dyes that are carcinogen. So we're just like basically playing cards about which country allows which carcinogen. They're everywhere. Absolutely, they are. Go ahead, David, what you're going to say.
I was just going to say, could you imagine, like, how could you eat a non-colored Captain Crunch berry? Like, if it wasn't red,
you wouldn't know what it was.
I wouldn't know what it was. Yeah. If it was just like another tan berry.
The little fake berry. It's not even a real berry. It's just like a little fake colored thing that has like a,
it's like,
has a raspberry
I want to cut the roof of my mouth. I want to cut the roof of my
mouth
mouth with colorful food, not bland tan stuff.
Gross. What were you saying, Philip?
I was just saying, like, now, like, all cereals is going to look like Kix.
Right. Bucker Bill in our chat says, if your kids are asleep, then red dye will wake them up real quick. Sorry for telling the truth. Redacted.
Oh, is that true? I didn't know.
Well, I mean, there's certainly the yellow dye is linked to like ADHD. I mean, it's like makes them all like hyperattention deficit disorder and all of this stuff. So you're giving them all this like basically a poison in our cereals. Like, how are we allowing this in the United States? Like, here's a box of Fruit Loops, kids. This is supposed to be your healthy breakfast. It's filled with poison. Start your day off right.
Yeah. I mean, I want to recommend. Go ahead.
Well, my daughter's 18, and I'm pretty sure that over the course of her life, it would be an easily countable number of bowls of cereal she's eaten. Like, I would say probably less than a dozen.
Yeah, I've never fed my kids cereal for breakfast, never once, but they've been on camps where they handed it out as snacks, and then they let me know. They're like, they gave me cereal.
I got cereal for the first time.
But no, I've never served it in my house, and I don't buy it either. For that, I want to recommend the book, The Great Plant-Based Con, because she talks about the birth of the cereal industry, and it came from, I think it's Christian Adventists or some Seventh-day Adventists, who a woman had a dream that the Garden of Eden, someone in the Garden of Eden told her to only eat like that, and that they should not be eating any meat or animal products, and that her book was transcribed by the Kellogg's. So please read it. It's a crazy story that most of us don't know. Okay, so the FDA is invoking here the Delaney Clause, which prohibits the FDA from authorizing any food or color additive that has been found to cause cancer in either humans or animals. So that's the reasoning they're using. Why just red 3 when not, like I said, red 40, yellow 5? FDA ever heard of fluoride? But okay, it's a start, this one thing. And we're wondering just if this is a harbinger of what's to come, given the MAHA movement that was voted in by many Americans because of Donald Trump's association with RFK Jr. and his nomination to the head of the Health and Human Services. Here he is talking about yellow number 5, which is found in cereals and mac and cheese, and how, yes, it's not good for the human body. Watch.
And the toxins end up in every supermarket aisle. Let me show you what I mean. Doritos, Cheez-Its, Captain Crunch, gummy bears. Everyone knows that these are junk foods, so maybe you wouldn't be too surprised to see that the ingredients include a lot of poisons, including a harmful yellow dye called tatrazine, or yellow dye number 5. What you may not know is that this dye was originally made out of the sludge that's left over when you turn coal into coke for blast furnaces. It's called coal tar, and I've actually sued many big industries for legacy contamination of coal tar all around the country because it's so toxic and it's so harmful to the environment and human beings. A century ago, it was just an obnoxious industrial byproduct that everybody was trying to figure out ways to get rid of. One of the ways that they did that was by paving roads. But then a British chemist figured out that the coal tar could be used to derive fabric dye. And if fabric dye, why not food? Food manufacturers began using it to cover up the discoloration of low-quality foods that they wanted to pass off on unsuspecting customers. They didn't know back then that this yellow dye, tartrazine, causes tumors, asthma, developmental delays, neurological damage, ADD, ADHD, hormone disruption, gene damage, anxiety, depression, intestinal injuries. Well, we know it now. We've known this for decades. That's why tartrazine is heavily restricted in other countries. In some countries, foods with tartrazine have a warning label that it may cause ADHD in children. Today, it's made from petroleum, not coal tar. Either way, it's crazy to add this to your kid's favorite foods. Good. It doesn't even change the flavor. This yellow dye isn't just in junk food. It's in the foods that we consider healthy. It's in everyday kids' snacks like popcorn, mac and cheese, fruit snacks. It's in sports drinks like Gatorade and so-called vitamin water. It's even added to chicken broth, to corn, to pickles, to mustard, and to yogurt. And so, of course, our kids get sick. And we lovingly feed them chewable vitamins which have, surprise, tartrazine. And so the cycle continues until the coughs and asthma kick in, at which point you go to pick up some cough syrup. And yeah, you guessed it, tartrazine.
Tartrazine in the cough syrup. Oh my God.
Gerard's in the chat, I don't know this to be true, says that actually tartrazine can make skin transparent in mice. I'm going to have to look that up. Go ahead, Philip.
Well, who's looking at a pile of coal ash and like, God, I wish there was a way to eat that.
I wish
I could eat that.
Well, we did that with fluoride. It's like here we, yeah, exactly. So we have this byproduct. we have this thing that we can't just dump into other areas. So how do we do it? It's brilliant. You take the fluoride, and then we just pump it into we make municipalities buy it off of people. We shove it into our drinking water.
Yeah.
And cause lower IQ in children.
That was such an eye-opening interview you did. That was over the holiday break. Who was the guy?
The attorney.
It was the lawyer that.
Lead attorney Michael Connett, who sued the EPA and won because of the fluoridation of our water. I encourage all of you to go watch that interview. He was great, and I mean, it's unbelievable. The government is knowingly allowing this.
Yeah. It's a byproduct of. Go ahead. A lot of things.
Well, I was just going to say this is obviously the pharmaceutical industry just wanting to keep us sick because like. They work hand in hand with the FDA, who's responsible for keeping this stuff away from us, but they're not doing that because they're basically part of big pharma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. And they make big money off of keeping us sick and in this perpetual state of decline. I mean, he talks about how we had like much higher life expectancies in the 1990s, but then we started adding all of these chemicals back into the system again, and no wonder we're incredibly sick now in the United States. Deeply disturbing.